Hey everybody. Hope y'all are doing well today. I'm going to try to get by today without turning the air conditioner on. I had it on before the stream, but pretty warm here, so I might have to turn it on, but it's pretty loud, so if I can get by without it, I will. How you guys doing? You doing well? Oh, let me see. I might not have chat turned on yet. All right, well, we're gonna start today by doing some slip work on the on some of these two-part vases. So I've got some up there and some down there, one on my wheel here that some of them, let's see, are ones that I actually put together in the last live stream, and the others are ones that are going to be in my video that will come out tomorrow morning, where I put the second part to where I put the tops on the bottoms I made in the last video. Not the last live stream, but the last YouTube video. So just going to do some slip work on these before they, I mean, to me, like, it depends. Hey, John, what's going on, buddy? Long time no see. I was just talking about you the other day with somebody that came by here. We're going to do slip work on these, and some of them are getting pretty dry, but thankfully with the 18 degrees in Nebraska, Rich, it's going to be like 85 here today. It's crazy. I'm like, I'm already sweating. I'm probably going to have to turn on the AC, so. But I think I'd rather have 85 than 18, though. So, if I had my preference, it'd be like 70 or 75. That would be much better. But anyway, I'm going to do slip work on these, and they're getting pretty dry, but thankfully the combination of clay and slip that I use doesn't really matter if the pots are dry. The only thing it will affect sometimes is that the white slip that I use sometimes will crack a little bit as it dries on the dry pots. But I don't mind that look either. So putting the wet slip on this, of course this is already dried a good amount, then having the wet slip added will sometimes make that slip crack. Hey Paul. Yeah, I saw your comment. I lived outside of, well, really I said outside of Toronto. It was just a suburb. I believe it was Mississauga that I lived in for about a year. I was at a school at a church up there. So, yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed being there for sure. But yeah, I have heard of Barrie, and I think I might have went there, but that's been a long time ago. So anyway, all right, we're gonna. I'll start with this one here. We'll do some slip work on these, and I'm thinking with this one, I'm gonna do. On the belly here, I'm going to do some of my like fern type pattern with some of those red dots around it. So this one's going to be probably pretty extensive as far as the slip work done on it. I might raise you guys up a little bit and then point the camera down so you have a little better angle. So I just refilled my slip bottles earlier, and also just so you guys know, I knew I was going to be doing the slip work, and I had several people that asked about the slip recipes. So the two slip recipes, the ones that I work with are the white and the red, which the red I turn into a dark red by adding red iron oxide. And the same recipe of the red, I add manganese dioxide and make my black slip. So those two recipes are in the description of this live stream. And I also made a post on my YouTube channel. And so those recipes are in both of those places for you guys. And anybody else who misses that, if you see this later and for some reason you have an issue. Now, I will say this: the one recipe for the red slip, it says like 75% red clay. That is our local red clay that we get in North Carolina. That's an iron rich clay that just comes straight out of the ground. I'm not 100% sure what you could use as a substitute for that, but that's just the local red clay. You could try, maybe some red art or something like that, but the iron content in the red art, I'm sure, is a lot higher than what I get with this. So you may not even have to add the red iron oxide if you're using red art, but you'll just have to test it if you don't have any local red clay to use, and try it with some different clays. All right, so I'm going to do some of my white slip kind of fern patterns, and so I'm just going to draw some curvy lines and then put the ferns on them. And then I'll come back and I'm going to do some smaller ones, and then I'm going to put some dots around these as well. Got a little splatter there, but or a sputter. The only tricky part with doing this, or one of the tricky parts, is when I get to the other side, I gotta hold this, but I can't hold it where I put the slip on. Right now it's just resting in the palm of my hand, which is good, but when I flip around, I'm gonna have to hold it with my fingertips kind of spaced around the design I've already put on it. All right, let's see. Like I said, I'm gonna kind of position my fingers in between all these and then flip it over. I probably need to do an angle first so I can get this section right here. Yeah, and I take advantage of the fact that when the slip first starts coming out of the bottle, you can like make a little bubble with it, and that makes a really cool shape for these little lines, because you get that big kind of bulbous top, and then even for the small ones I put on, you get that really cool look by doing that. That also helps me gauge when the slip's coming actually out of the bottle. All right, now I got to flip it around and get right there. So I just position my fingers around all the design on the other side. Yeah, the advantage of doing this when the pots are drier is the fact that it's a lot easier to hold and to work with, because I don't have to worry about squishing the pot as I'm doing my design if it was too soft. Of course, making these as I did in 2 sections, the bottom would have been stiffer anyways, so probably holding this wouldn't have been a problem even if I've done these while they were a little bit more wet. And I know the title of the stream was Throwing Pots and Chatting Again, but I figured it would be neat, change of pace, to do a little bit of slip work on these first, and then switch it up here in a little bit. Hey, Daryl. probably what I'm going to do is actually wait and let all these white slip lines dry a little bit first, and then I'll come back and add the dots. That way I can hold it a little easier. And so I'll give you an idea of the design on that for right now. That one, because it has that big space at the bottom, that's why I decided to do all those designs, because it didn't have anything to break up the top from the bottom like these do. So I just took advantage of it. Now this one has all that space down here as well, but it was more of like a freeform all the way up with no interruption. So I thought it'd look good with some of that design on that. Now, I don't know if I'll do anything around the top or not. Yeah, John, all of my work has come a long way since high school, I hope. That's been a couple years ago. All right, let me look back at comments. Yeah, Jenna, definitely. I told several people that I guess the advantage is I'm used to working from home, so my normal is still kind of normal. So I definitely feel for those that are not able to work or having to work from home, and it's a big change of pace for a lot of people. But for me, thankfully, I'm still kind of feeling pretty normal. Hey, Freddie, good to see you. Pottery Works, hey. Hey, Jed. Oh, you're Alaskans stuck in Montana. Oh, man. Hey, Nancy, no, these pots are actually pretty dry. And I know a lot of people, if you're doing slip work, it's better to do it on leather hard. But thankfully, the combinations that I'm using, number one, this clay has a good amount of grog in it, so that helps. Makes the clay body a little more open and porous. But as I mentioned earlier, the white slip is the only one that sometimes if I put it on, it may crack as it's drying, but I don't mind that look even on a finished piece. Here, I'll grab one that you guys can see what that looks like. All right, here's a couple pieces from the first wood firing, and here's the first one. I probably put this on while the pot was still leather hard, and you can see the white slip there. There's no cracks in it whatsoever. It's just a smooth surface. But then we'll look at this tumbler here. I mean this stein, and you can see that at the top of the slip there where it's cracked. That's probably because the pot was a whole lot drier, and where the slip went on, it cracked as it was drying because the pot was already more dry, and so it gave it that effect. Which, like I said, I don't mind that because it doesn't affect the like I said, that's not gonna flake off or anything like that. If I had a problem with that, I definitely would change that. So if I don't want it to crack at all like that, I'll put it on. But also, even if you put the white slip on really heavy, sometimes even with a leather hard one, it depends on the thickness. If they dry at different rates, that could cause that to happen. Let's see, with this one, and I've got that one. So hopefully that helps. Maybe answer your question there. Thanks, Nancy. Yeah, I need a cushion back here. I don't have a natural cushion. Hey, Marco. Yeah, I just like anybody else, I pretty much, as far as controlling the drying, use plastic to cover things up if I don't want them to dry very fast. And if I want things to dry faster, if it's summertime, I have a dehumidifier that I can run. But if it's wintertime, usually I'm heating it in here, which helps dry things out, especially if I'm running my wood stove. But then I have to be very careful because if I make anything really wide and I have my wood stove going, I have to really be careful and cover things up, because even some of the last platter bowls I made, it was while it was still cold, and I lost probably 4 out of 12 by them drying too fast. So that was a, yeah, pretty silly mistake on my part, but yeah, it is what it is. You win some and lose some, right? All right, I'm just gonna try to center this one a little bit because I'm gonna add some red slip to this one up top. I just refilled all my slip bottles, so I'm not 100% sure of the consistency that I have, but all right, I'm gonna put some my black slip in between those lines. Ooh. Yeah, this black slip is a little runnier, but it'll be fine. Like I said, all this, I'll probably put my rutile blue over top of this, which will, these two slips will kind of melt and run with that blue glaze anyways, and that'll give a really neat effect, running down different colors like a purple and a copperish color blue and blue. This one I kind of intended on putting handles on, and it got away from me as far as dryness, so let's see. I think we'll do the seeing I've got a lot of open space here as well, I'm going to do a couple of those swooshes with the white dots in between, like I did for my first firing. So with that, I just kind of take the slip bottle and I do a couple swooshing lines. My goal is to make kind of like a, let's see, where's my pencil? Oh, up here. My goal is to make somewhat of a shape, something like that, if you can see that pencil line there, and then I'll fill in the inside with some white slip dots. But I do this really fast, so I get some really cool organic lines. I don't like try to follow that, so I'll get something like that. That's a really big space there, but and then I'll take my white slip, and on the inside of that, then just do some random white dots. Different sizes, so I just squeeze the bottle a little bit more in some places to get bigger dots, and lighter in other places to get smaller dots. I'm just trying to space them out a little bit too, so you get some kind of like negative space in there. So most of these that I do like this, I left the clay raw. I didn't put any glaze on this, I just glazed the inside, and then let the wood ash and the salt do the rest of the work on that. So I'll do another one on this side, and phone call. Maybe I need to turn my volume off so it doesn't ring. They might call again. It was my brother, so there we go. And like that, even if it doesn't connect, so just to get that shape where I get what my main thought behind this, and I did this in a previous video last year, my main thought was just to give an area that I could put those white dots in instead of just have them floating on the pot somewhere. By having those kind of defining lines of the other slip, it gives kind of like a vehicle for the white slip dots, an area for them to kind of be contained in somewhat, even though they're kind of free-floating organic dots. They still kind of have a contained area that they're kind of in, if that makes sense. Now we got that side, and you got that side. All right. Yeah, you'll see if you watch the videos, you'll see some of these pots actually in my video tomorrow. I think I put tops on 3 or 4 of these that you're seeing here that goes in my video tomorrow. Sorry, needed to grab my towel. So you'll see that. Let's see, this one, I think I'll do some white dots up here and then maybe again down here, and it'll be broken up by this middle neck there that I did those grooves in. Trying to decide if I want to do a, yeah, I think I'll do a pattern instead of just random dots, which that gets trickier because I got to get them somewhat evenly spaced. Thankfully, I've got the lines on the neck so I can get them at the same spot vertically. It's just horizontally spaced is the tricky part. And then I'm just doing in between those dots with the next row. You guys may find this funny. Oh, it's blurted. Not that. I had to, excuse me, I had to alter the description of my last live stream. I had put it up, and I had certain things, the things that are going on in our world today. I had those in the description, and YouTube wouldn't allow it to be monetized because it had those words in the description, and I think it's probably, they're just trying to keep people from putting out, content that will just, incite fear or anything like that. And so even though I had said we're not going to talk about any of that stuff in the last live stream, I had it in the description, and so I had to change that, and then it got monetized. So that was pretty interesting. I was like, why is my video not monetized? It's the same thing as everything else I do. And it said it was, some content may not be suitable for advertisers. And I was like, okay, well, and then just changed the description and requested a review. And within like 10 minutes, it got monetization back. So I was like, okay, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore. We'll just leave those subjects out of all this, whether it's in the description or conversation. So that's it. That's all we're going to talk about. Let me look at chat real quick before I do the other dots. Yeah, Marco, the slip definitely looks different in my gas kiln versus the wood kiln. Some of the slips I don't use in the, I just started using the white slip in my gas kiln, and I definitely, I like the way it worked, but I have to work on maybe adjusting a little bit of it. You'd be counting the dots, John. Actually, John, I never count the dots, but I have another friend who's a potter that told me he always counts the dots because he has to know how many there are. And so, that's funny. I never do. The only time I count the dots is sometimes when I'm doing my peacock platter bowls. I'll count them just so I know how many there are. And when I'm done, I'll count how many is in a ring and then how many rows of it. And so that's about the only time that I do that. Now I'm going to put some that go from here down a little bit, and I'm just going to use it now sitting up on the wheel, and then I can spin the wheel with my foot pedal or my hand instead of having to hold it. And like I said, once again, it's good that I have those lines on the neck that can help me get them at the right height. And then as far as the spacing, that just, you just hope you can get it close so that it doesn't look. The only other time I count, John, is if I'm wanting to do, if I don't want to do, you know, even number of rings all the way around. Sometimes I want to do the dots in a V, and you can only do that if you have an even number of dots around the neck. Otherwise, you'll have, you know, you'll do a V here and a V here, and then there'll be an odd number of dots in between, and that doesn't work out. So you have to have an even number. So that's the only time that I do count as far as doing dots like this, if I want to do those in a V. Here, we'll count here in just a second, and then John, you probably already counted. You're like, oh, yeah, you got more dots down there than you do up there. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So yeah, there are 12 spaces, dots, whatever. So we'll do a couple V's on this, and we'll do, if we do 3 and 3, that'll be 6, and then there'll be 3 on each side in between. So 1, 2, 3, and then we'll do a 2, and then we'll do the 1. Maybe we'll actually go 4. If I do 4 and 4, there'll be 8, and then there'll be 2 in between each side. All right, so then when we get to here, we'll skip 1, 2, and then we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's 2 in between on this side. There we go. So now you can see I got that V there, and then it comes down and I've got a V on the other side. This is one that's in my video. Got a really tall skinny neck on that one. On this one, I think I'll probably just do some white slip dots, random ones that come down from the top, and then kind of, I've done this a lot with this kind of shape where I do those random dots, and then they kind of just fizzle out as they get down here in the neck, and it just, I think it looks pretty neat. So. Trying to do it in a way that you guys can see. There we go. I think that's a good angle. Hey, Cliff. You made it to a live stream. Hopefully it's not too late there. Yeah, I actually was thinking about trying my live streams at different times so that different people around the world could see them. And I did my last one at 3 p.m. Eastern. And then, oh, I think that's got air in it. Yep. We'll just leave that one. It's kind of a, not necessarily a round dot, but it'd be hard to wipe it off at this point. So I'm having to tilt it towards me so I can see what I'm doing. I know it doesn't help you guys on the camera, but all right, now we'll get that out and see what that looks like. There we go. I think I'll add some red slip just to the rim of this one. because if I put my rutile blue over that, the rutile blue over top of the white dots looks really neat because it makes the white dots look really pearlescent. But having the red slip on the rim will give a little pop of color to the rim, and it will also actually kind of melt with that rutile blue and run down a little bit inside and out, just to add a little extra touch. Here I go with Bob Ross again, just adding a touch of color, a little happy line along with the happy dots. All right, let me go back. Hey, Gene, I was just talking about you. I didn't mention you by name. John asked if I counted dots when I was putting dots on, and I said no, but I know a potter who does, so. Yeah, Paul, I definitely want to do some workshops, and I've definitely, like I said, thought about it and would really like to do some. And actually, I was actually going to go up to in Silica this year just for, I had a show that same weekend, but I was going to go for Wednesday night and Thursday, and I was actually going to go and hang out with John the Potter a little bit and meet him in person. And then he was, even when that got canceled, he's like, when are you doing your wood firing? And I told him, and he's like, I don't know, maybe I can just come to that. But then everything went crazy, and so, you know, none of that worked out. But there's a good chance he wants to come to a wood firing eventually. And also, I was kind of joking with him after he made that huge planter. I said, maybe I need to do a workshop on making big pots. And he said, I'd come. And I said, well, all I got to do is just announce that you're going to be there. And I said, everybody else will show up. It doesn't even have to be because of me. So, yeah, Gene, I know. You got to count. All right, let's see. What am I going to do with this one? Of course, some of these I could just leave plain, and what I might do with some of these is actually take this black slip that I have, and I'll put it in my spray gun, and I'll actually just spray the whole pot with the slip and give it a nice light coating of that black slip, and that makes pots turn really dark and toasty brown in the front of the wood kiln, or really anywhere they are in the wood kiln. So I'm probably going to leave that one raw, and I'm probably going to leave this pitcher raw because in my video you'll see this, but this was one of the 3-pound bottoms, and when I went to put the top on it, I was like, well, I don't have to make them all tall and skinny. And when I made that top, I'm like, man, that would make a really nice pitcher. And so I got that nice thick rim up here, and then I just you know, after making that shape, I put those grooves in the neck, and I thought, man, that is, like, to me, that's a gorgeous picture. And, you know, I probably could make that in one piece, you know, that wouldn't be like that big of a challenge. But having that nice round bottom and then the skinnier neck like that, it just, like I said, making those, it was easier in 2 pieces. And of course the size of it is pretty good, because that's probably it was probably 4 1/4 pounds to get that big of a pot. And so that is, it's already dried some, of course, but even drying some, it's 12 inches tall now. So that's to me is a pretty good size for 4 1/4 pounds. And like I said, beautiful shape. And I had all that thickness up here that I can make that really nice spout and have a good nice thick rim up here on the top, which makes it look really nice. So I'll probably leave that one raw, and I'll probably spray some of that slip on this one as well and put it right up front in the wood kiln and have, like I said, just a really nice toasty brown, and then some nice wood ash drips and runs on the front side of it, or on one side of it. All right, so we'll set those aside. Let's go back to the one that I put the ferns on, and we'll put the dots around that. Yeah, you can start to see there, I've already got a couple cracks in the white slip in that one. Like I said, but that doesn't really bother me so much. You know, that's, you know, something you would have to pay attention to, because if you get to a point where that slip is going to come off, or if you put it on too thick, it may not stay leather hard. Like I said, might be the way to go, depending on your clay body and the slip that you're using. But I'm just going to put some random red slip dots around all this pattern. I mean, all this, the ferns. So if you like dots, this is the pot for you. But not if you like them in a pattern. All right, Gene, I'm expecting that you're counting and you're going to tell me how many dots I put on when I'm done. Yeah, I got a question for you. Would you count if you were doing this kind of a dot pattern, or would you only count if you were doing ones that were in an actual repeating pattern? I mean, it would be cool to know how many dots I put on of these red dots, but um, that's getting a little OCD. And I've got a little bit of that, of course, but not that much. I told my son everybody's got it to some degree. It's just others is way more apparent and maybe different than. Yeah, I'm gonna need to count the dots to know what to charge for this one. Figure out amount per dot. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to turn on my air conditioner after I do this. Hopefully it's not too loud for you guys, but I'm starting to sweat. And it's not because of my lights. The lights that I use to make my videos, they're all LEDs, so they don't put out much heat at all, but uh, just being so hot outside today, it's getting toasty in here. Now, if I was counting dots, I wouldn't be able to talk to you while I'm doing this, so I guess it's good that I'm not counting right now. All right, let's take a look at that. That's pretty neat. A lot of dots and a lot of a lot of design on that one. That one will stay raw as well. I won't put any glaze over top of that one. Uh, yeah, I'm sure anybody would lose count, Marco. Uh, well, Paul, nice to know that you'll come to a workshop. I definitely plan to figure out a way to do that. I'll have to maybe find a local. Well, if it's wood fire, I could do it here. But if it's a local, if it's a throwing one, I have to find a somewhere that has a art studio. I mean, an art center that has a bunch of wheels. Um, hey, Gene, have fun. Getting back to work. Thanks, Marco. The XX Seger, you should be able to buy that at any ceramic supply store, Patrick, if you just look that up. You do the counting unconsciously, John. Yeah, that's like I said on that one. I don't think anybody would count that one, but anyway. All right, so now we'll throw a couple things. Let me turn the air conditioner on. Like I said, hopefully it's not too loud, but I need it. Should still be fine because of my microphone that I got here that's pretty directional. It cuts out a lot of background noise. Anyway, let's see, I was going to look at my list of things I need to throw before starting today, but I didn't do that. So you guys have anything you'd like to see thrown before I just start making something? Or any other questions while I'm in between? I did think about trying one of those large two-part moon jars again. Make the two large bowls and then put them together. I could make the two bowls and then make it, when I make the bottom one, I could torch it and then torch the top one lightly and put those together. But that would it'd definitely be something that I wouldn't be able to talk nearly as much while doing that. Consider a bring your own wheel workshop. Yeah, the only problem with that is if anybody's coming from a distance, you know, it'd be harder. Hey Jed, yeah, that's a good idea. I haven't, one of the things I'd like to make for this wood kiln is some more jugs, and I haven't made very many. I think I've made one that was like, I don't know if it was a 6 or 9 pound jug. I can't remember what size it was, but. Hey there, from New Jersey, welcome. Yeah, Daryl, that's why I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and I was talking about doing workshops. Well, actually, no, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday about my pug mill, but I was talking to somebody else yesterday. It was actually Freddie Moretti, who watches my YouTube videos. He was just talking about, yeah, finding an art center that has several wheels. That would be the prime place to do a workshop for throwing, at least. So there's some of those. Of course, there's Starworks Ceramics here in Seger that does some workshops. Oops, sorry, I hit the. A large bowl or platter with just ash glaze. Yeah, I did that with that sink in my gas kiln. I haven't done any in my wood kiln with just ash glaze. A favorite old-timer potter? Well, my first job in pottery was at a couple different shops. One here in Seagrove, Holly Hill Pottery, and they were working in conjunction with J.B. Cole Pottery. And I never met Wayman Cole, which was Nell Cole Graves was the last surviving potter of that studio, and her brother Wayman. I never met him, but I was definitely inspired a lot by his work early on. And I didn't know it, but also shoot, my brain. There's a potter in the mountains. I'll think of his name in a minute, but I didn't know necessarily that I was inspired by him, but the way that I make my large pots where I put wet sections together, I was in the bank last year sometime, and I was waiting to speak to the lady there, and I was flipping through a pottery book that was there, and I saw pictures of that guy throwing pots in with wet sections, just like I do, and I'm like, see, there's nothing, anything you do in pottery has been done before. So I was like, I didn't know that I somewhere along the way I got the inspiration for that, and like I said, there's somebody there that had been doing it and long before I was even born, so it's all been done before. I'm just thankful that we can take that knowledge and inspiration from other potters and apply it. As far as currently my work, I definitely, forms, I love Mark Hewitt's work, and definitely inspired by things that he has made and his wood-fired pieces. And then I'm friends with some people that were apprentices of his. So I have definitely some influence from that whole kind of lineage of potters as far as that goes. But all right, let me grab some clay balls here and cut some up, and then we'll start throwing. I have some stiff clay, so maybe we'll just make a few different things. Maybe I'll make some platter bowls, and maybe I'll make a couple jugs. If anybody has any suggestions along the way, definitely put them in chat, and then we'll see. Oh, and by the way, not as a pitch for y'all to have ever tried crystalline? No, Red Hand Ceramics. I've never done it crystalline. I've something that I always for years I wanted to try wood-fired salt glaze, and I wanted to try crystalline, but I've still never done the crystalline or crystalline. But it's definitely something I've thought about. But I finally got into the wood-fired and salt glaze, and so right now I'm just having a whole lot of fun with that, and I'll definitely probably eventually will try some. But anyway, there's something else I was saying right before that. I don't remember what it was now. All right, I'm gonna make some cut up some clay balls here, and then start throwing. Oh yeah, I know what I was saying. I was going to say that I did enable the super chat because somebody mentioned that in the last video, and that by no means is a sales pitch for anybody to give any donations, but they said, hey, why don't you turn that on in case somebody wants to donate? And I said, well, you know, I'm not one to ever ask or feel like I'm begging for money in any sense. So if you feel led and that's something that you want to do, feel free to do that. But you know, I use my YouTube videos and my actual selling of my actual pottery that I make as, in my mind, as my source of income. But of course, you know, all the videos and all that does take time. And as I mentioned in the last video, I think somebody, you know, I think that came up because I was talking about the possibility of doing a Patreon, which I've still not done and still just thinking about, not sure what I still think about that. But you know, just things to think about. But like I said, that involves a whole lot more than just signing up. I would have to figure out rewards for people that are constant patrons and all that kind of stuff. So not going to just leave people hanging for donating money on a monthly basis. All right, there's some clay balls. I've cut most of them up just into 3 pounds, and then we'll, if we want to make something bigger, I can add some of them together. Definitely feeling a lot better now that the air conditioner's on. Hopefully you guys are not, it's not being interrupted at all. Yeah, John, the sinks, you know, all you got to do is just make sure that you, whatever drain you're going to buy, find the specifications of what size the hole needs to be, and then make it according to that. Jed, that pug mill is a Venco. And I don't even think they're made in Australia, and it's a great brand. That one actually is 25 years old. I bought it used from a local potter last year. Yeah, definitely. Red Hand, I definitely thought about making some lamps. I haven't gotten into that yet, but hey, Daryl, good to know that is not too loud. Thanks. But yeah, the lamps is definitely something I'm interested in making. I just haven't gotten to that point yet. And I know, like I said, I know several potters that do make them, and I could get all the details of what parts I need and all that. Just haven't done that yet. All right, we're going to start out with a jug here because that was the first recommendation, at least that I saw. I'm gonna. I don't have any slip here. I got some right here. If I'm ever gonna make something tall that I'm worried about the bat coming up off the wheel, if they don't fit real tight, I'll put a little bit of slip underneath the bat, and that kind of acts as like a glue to hold the bat down. Once I put the clay on that and I center it, it really creates a good, makes it stick to the wheel. So as I'm pulling up the clay, it doesn't it doesn't lift up the bat as well. So I'll take this one. This one was more than 3 pounds. This one is like 4 pounds of clay here. Not gonna get your yard work done today. You trying to blame that on me? I hope not. I did, by the way, flip my wheel over and check on the belt. Now that it's starting to make noise, it made me think about it. And I got the belt realigned to where I thought it wasn't going to make any noise, but now it's making a little bit of noise. So, but it's still quieter than it was last time. We'll see how much that, if it progresses and gets any worse. Yeah, the taller the piece you're going to make and the stiffer the clay is, the more chance you would have that bat to lift up off the wheel head as you're pulling it, which is one of the reasons, like I said, I put that slip underneath the bat. Plus this bat was just a little bit wobbly when I put it on. That's another reason that I did it. I could tell it was already a little bit loose and a little bit wobbly. This clay is not very stiff. I did take about 100 pounds of clay and I let it sit out overnight. I did flip it once. I cut it up into like 4 big sections each bag, and then I pugged it, and then I actually ended up, it was a little bit stiffer than I needed, so I ended up pugging it with some fresh out of the bag so that it was kind of an in-between between fresh out of the bag and the clay that I stiffened up. Yeah, now because I'm making a jug, I'm actually going to leave that top couple inches where I pulled up. I kind of followed through with the motion on that top, but I didn't pull any extra clay. I'm going to do one more pull from the bottom, but like I said, I'm not going to pull any more clay at this top because I want to leave a little bit extra clay there so it's easier to make that smaller top. You can see also I started the shape a little bit on that pull, pushed in at the bottom, and then as I was pulling, I kind of pulled out. I'm going to separate that clay at the bottom from my foot. I'm going to push in a little bit above the wheel head or the bat, and then separate that clay and do a little bit of a shape there, and then come back and form that foot. All right. Alright, so there's a nice good sized belly on that. Clean the water out. Now I'm going to take my sponge and just add a little bit of water just to this top so that I can start bringing that in. I leave that extra clay in the top so that I can bring that in without it buckling, but also so that as I bring it in, then I can come back and pull it just at the top there to help get the height that I need. And I think after you neck it in, after you make it smaller, of course you're making that clay thicker, and it's a good idea to kind of pinch it in and then pull it, and then pinch it in and pull it, kind of helping that clay stay kind of an even thickness. I heard Ben Owens say one time, I think it was when he was doing, he does a thing every year for our UNC TV fundraiser, and I heard him on there one time saying that if you're going to make a jug or something with a small top, you can tell how well that you threw that form is if you can go from a wide, like I just did, go from a wide pot to a small top and not have to cut the top off. If you don't have to cut the top off and make it even, then you know you threw it really well, because there was no wobble at all in it to the point that you had to close that in and then cut the top off. So I feel pretty good about that one as far as that goes. Just kind of an unwritten rule that I adopted from hearing him say that. I thought, well, he's a darn good potter, and I like his work and his forms and his glazes, everything about what he does. So there's another one. We were talking earlier about people that inspire me or that I like their work. There's a, like I said, so there's a jug. Piece of the grog right there on the rim. Oh, where's my screwdriver? There it is. Now I don't have anywhere to put it because I put all these pots that I was doing the slip work on over here. Yeah, I'll answer that in just a second. Let me move these and come back so I've got a place to put my pots. let's see. Let me go back. I'll get back to that question here in a second. Let me. Yeah, Mark Hewitt's in North Carolina, Marco. You made some of those bats? Good, Marco. I'm glad to hear that. Actually, oh, okay, yeah, you're asking Marco that, Paul. Okay, good. Good, Marco. That's good to know. I'm glad to know that they do that, the plywood company in Texas. Good to hear that. No, I don't make any of my own tools, Daryl. I'm actually in talking with Justin's Makery. He has a YouTube channel about making me some custom-made ribs, and so this one was 3D printed, and I'm actually going to want it a little bit bigger than this, and maybe have some holes in them to hold on to in a different way. So I'm talking to him, so that'll probably be in an upcoming video once we iron out some details of that. Let's see. Yeah, all right. So Janet, you asked why I had these jars like this. These were 6-pound jars that I made, and yesterday, after they'd stiffened up quite a bit, I came and put the handles on them. But just by the fact that how big they were and how thin I threw them, they were when I noticed when I took them off the wheel when I was throwing them, they would flex a little bit, and so the rim got a little bit out of round. So just by the time I went to put the handles on, I noticed some of them were out of round, but they were still soft enough that they were pliable, but they were getting stiff. So after I put the handles on, I actually turned them upside down on these bats so that I would hopefully that the weight of them sitting on the rim would straighten them out and keep them from going oblong. So when I go to make the lids for them, that they don't have any problems. So basically, that's what they're looking like as far as the pot goes. And then, like I said, I just turned them upside down on those bats to hopefully keep the tops round. And so that's why those are sitting there like that with bats. So the bats actually that are here are actually the ones that I threw them on. The square ones are the ones that I put on top and then flipped them over. Yeah, Daryl, good to know. Yeah. Justin does some pretty unique things, and talked to him a few times. We worked on a few different custom tools, some custom dies for my extruder for handles, several things. We're still working on some of those, ironing out, like I said, some of those details. I'm going to go ahead and make this one a 6-pound. We'll do a platter bowl with this one. I love to use the heel of my hand like that when I'm opening up a large clay ball like this for a platter bowl. Oh, I forgot I'm on a square bat. Actually, that might not work. We'll do a 6-pound vase, and then we'll do a platter bowl next. If I make this too wide on this square bat, I'm not going to be able to. I'm not going to be able to make the foot. I just realized I'm on a square bat. Change plans. Now I got a little bit of a wobble in it from something there, but we'll try to force that out as we're pulling and shaping here. Somebody asked me in a recent video how that they were pulling cylinders and everything wanted to get wider and wider. And so, you know, that's one thing, excuse me, one thing, it just takes a lot of practice. But the one thing that I do, is you saw in that first pull that I did, where I just used my hand and I rolled up, I start out with kind of like that narrowed in shape, and then I try to keep that going. As I pull, I try to kind of pull up and towards the center of the wheel, and that helps you if you want to make taller forms. Keeping that cylinder as small as possible is going to help with that, and pulling up and towards the center of the wheel is really going to help with that as well. Like I said, that takes a lot of practice, but of course with the natural force of the wheel spinning around, it's going to want to go out. Maybe we'll make a 6-pound bottom here that I'll come back in tomorrow or the next day and put a top on. I haven't done any of that size yet for this firing. Hey Paul, thanks for coming. I'll back you guys up a little bit because it's getting bigger here. Alright, I'm going to do at least one more pull, and I'm going to try to start the shape on this pull as well a little bit more. I should have added a little bit more water on the inside, but right there at the very bottom it was a little dry on the inside. I'll get back to comments here in just a minute when I finish this one. I think the wheel definitely is a little quieter today than it was for the last live stream, so I think fixing that belt definitely helped. Still got a little bit of noise, but doesn't have that loud squeak that it did last time, so that's good to know. There we go. Alright, this time I am going to remember to mark the bat pin on the wheel where the where my X is. So I know which way to put that bat back on the wheel when I got to put the top on it. Alright, now maybe we'll look at chat and then grab a round bat this time to make a platter bowl. Hey Steven. Hey David, welcome. 500 pounds of clay coming, that's good Marco. Thanks for being here. Hey Lydia, you got your barn chores done. Gotcha. Good deal. Welcome. Watch them while you unload a kiln. That's cool, David. Hope everything came out good. All right, Daryl, I look forward to seeing it. Lydia, thickness of the wall before I started belting, I really don't know. Hey John, I don't buy too many pots. I would love to, as far as being a collector. I'd love to buy a lot, but wife and 3 kids, that's what I collect. I collect clothes and food that gets eaten, and you know. Good, David. I'm glad to hear things came out well. Thickness of the wall on that, probably, let's see. Let me look at my ruler here. I'm guessing, you know, somewhere between 1/4 of an inch to you know, 3/16 before I started bellying it out. You definitely definitely want to leave a little bit of thickness there because I was going to make it so much wider. But I don't mind having some thinness there because as I belly it out, as long as it can hold itself up, you know. Good to see you too, John. Appreciate you. Love you too. Yeah, I definitely love pots, and I'd love to collect more. But I don't have that big of a house either, so it's where am I going to put them all, right? Yeah, Lydia, you definitely have to make sure that you leave enough thickness there if you're going to make a really wide round form like that, that you can have enough clay there to hold that or to support going wider. Let me grab a round bat here this time so I can make the platter bowl that I'd planned last time. Let's see, like I said, we're going to make probably like a 6-pound platter bowl here. Oh, Jed, I keep I have buckets out back that I put when I empty my water. I dump the water off the top after I let it set, usually overnight, and I take the slip in the bottom of the bucket and I pour it into like a 5-gallon bucket. Then I'll take that and reprocess that. Usually I take all that wet clay that's in a bucket and I'll dump it out on a piece of treated plywood and cover it lightly with plastic or whatever, and then come back and after it stiffens up a bit, and I'll either bag it up and then repug it later, or depending on, like I said, depending on the stiffness of it when I decide to reclaim it. But I have a pug mill, which really helps out with that. If you don't have a pug mill, that process is a lot harder, but it still can be done. I know a lot of people have, you know, like a big plaster mold that they'll pour their slip into. I just don't have one of those, so the treated plywood works out just fine, and so have it sitting outside where it can just sit for a few days, and then I can reclaim that clay. I think I left the bottom on this one a little bit thicker than I needed to. Yeah, a lot thicker than I needed to. Let's see. See if we can go back down in here and bring some of that clay out. Just focused on talking to you guys. That was thick enough that I could have trimmed a foot in the bottom. Not that that's a bad thing, like as I've talked about. I just don't normally do that. All right. Now that I've got all that extra thickness at the bottom, I need to even it out. Whoop. About messed up there. That right there is what we call a good save. Alright, now what I'm gonna do on this one is make the foot first, and then I'm going to add some water to the outside for my hand to glide on. Then I'll reverse the wheel and shape the bowl from the inside. I did a video about that not too long ago, if you guys remember, or if you haven't seen it, you can check it out. Alright, so I'm gonna just add water with my sponge to the outside, so that my left hand can glide on the outside. I'm gonna reverse my wheel and shape it from the inside. Alright, got a nice round shape there now. What I'm going to do, move my water bucket back a little bit, it's getting close to it. I'm actually going to put the wheel back in my normal direction, and now I'm going to lay the lip over. like that. And then put my swirl on the bottom. Then I usually come back after these, if I'm going to alter the rim at all, I come back after they've stiffened up a little bit and alter the rim on them. A couple little teeny air bubbles right there showed up. So I think it's better a lot of times if I come back and let these stiffen up a little bit because they're so wide and shallow that I come back and alter the rims later. And here we'll pick this up and I'll show you guys the profile of it. Maybe we'll measure this one too so you guys can see, but there's the profile. You got a pretty small foot and then it's really wide and shallow. So we are, so with 6 pound, that is about 16.5 inches wide and about 3 1/4 to 3 1/2 inches tall. And that, like I said, that's why I don't normally trim a foot on anything, because I already have a foot already made onto that when it was thrown, and I've already got a really nice round shape anyway, and I didn't leave a lot of extra clay in the bottom there that needs to be trimmed. This one is probably a little bit thicker than what I could make for my gas kiln, but seeing it's going in the wood kiln, a lot of times I'll leave these a little bit thicker anyways, just so they can handle the extra kind of like just atmosphere that happens in a wood kiln with the flames moving through the pots, and probably a little bit hotter than I fire in my gas kiln as well, at least potentially hotter. So I'll leave those a little bit thicker, but I'll come back later and do the alteration of the rim on that one. All right, now I'll go back to chat. Yeah, wild acorns, as far as, reclaiming clay, you definitely have a possibility that most of what you comes off your hands when you're throwing is more of the fine material. You don't have any of the coarse material that's left in the pot. A lot of it is the fine material that comes off on your hands. So that is a possibility. You could always just reclaim that with some bag clay if you have a pug mill, or even if you're wedging it. Excuse me. And that would help mitigate any of that change. But I've never really had a problem with that with reclaim. You know, it could be, I've heard people say that it's a little bit short at times. It just depends on what clay body you're using. So yeah, definitely wild acorn. Yeah, I agree. Like I said, you can mix that with some bag clay, or maybe even just add some. It just depends on what kind of clay you're using. You could add some grog to it, or you know, any of that. Lydia, I'm glad to know that worked for you. Yeah, reversing the wheel. Like I said, I didn't do that until just last year. Saw Ron Philbeck do that on a live stream on Instagram, and I'm like, that looks weird. What is he doing? And then I'm like, that looks hard. I tried it, and literally it was a little awkward for the first couple, but after that I was like, man, I love this. This works really well. Thank you, Lydia. I appreciate that. Yeah, definitely, Marco. It would make a nice fruit bowl. Yep, there you go. Pottery works. That's perfect. Yeah, add some powdered clay to bring it back to strength. Yep, there you go. Because yeah, I'm sure what comes off your hands, like I said, is more of the fine material than what's in the clay as a whole. Thanks, George. I'm glad you enjoy the videos. Yeah, like I said, what comes off your hands is definitely a finer material. A lot of times I'll take a little bit of that clay that comes off my hands and I'll make a slip out of that I would use to attach handles and all that. So I use a little bit of it that way. A a lot of times I'll even take what comes out of my splash pan, because somebody commented last time that, you know, I don't add a lot of water, I don't add a lot of clay to my bucket. When I'm throwing anything solid that comes off my hands, even if I scrape my hand on my bucket, a lot of times I take that clay and then put it in my splash pan, because I can take that more solid material, and when I clean out my splash pan, I just put it on one of these plastic bats and I'll let that stiffen up. So I never put it in my bucket to get it completely soaked. A lot of times I'll take that and just let it sit like this, and then after a couple days I'll turn that over and let that stiffen up a bit. And then like I said, when I'm pugging clay the next time, if I've got some that stiffened up a bit, I've got some over here that I did this to a few days ago, and you can see it's stiffened up a little bit, but it's still pretty tacky. But after that stiffens up some, I'll just either put that in a bag, or next time I'm pugging clay, I'll put that through there and just reclaim. Yeah, like I said, that's a good 6-7 pounds of clay that I can reclaim, and I'm not going to get rid of it, of course. So having the pug mill definitely helps with that. But even if I didn't, I could, you know, after another couple days of that sitting with a piece of plastic lightly over it, I could wedge that by hand and rethrow it, or mix it with some clay fresh out of the bag and wedge it together, and that would kind of add that strength back to it, like was just said. All right, anything you guys would like to see made? We've made a jug and a 6-pound bottom to a 2-part vase, and a 6-pound platter bowl. Hey George, the bats are made out of tempered masonite or hardboard. That's very hard to find, as I've found out now. These I bought, there was a local guy that used to make these. He's since quit doing that and retired, but I have plenty of them. But these are, like I said, just a tempered masonite or hardboard. Marco, I believe it was, said earlier that he found a company where he lives in Texas that does actually make it. And so yeah, wild acorns, that's a good idea too. Oh, a teapot. Yeah, that would be a little hard to do, because I could make all the pieces now, but they would have to dry for a few hours before I could put them together. Big bellied narrow neck vase. A pitcher. All right, let's see here. All right, we'll do a couple of those. We'll take one of these 3-pound clay balls. I'm going to cut it in half, and I'll make a couple pound and a half big bellied narrow top vases. I was trying to put water down there and I hit the edge of the pot. I think I got it smoothed out. Unintentionally cut the pot in half as I'm throwing. That wouldn't work. So yeah, like you've probably seen in my last video where I was making the bottoms for 2-part vases, and then I decorated some at the beginning of this live stream. You know, that shape can be done in one piece, but as you get bigger and bigger, this gets harder and harder to do, to have that size of a, a belly and then that skinny of a neck. So one of the main reasons that I do some in 2 sections is to help with that process. Because like I said, the bigger you get, the harder it is to make that. Just because you have just the natural force of more weight in the top bearing down on that shoulder and that small neck, that makes it harder. Bat's a little loose, as you can see. You probably heard it earlier knocking, and then as I'm pulling, it's kind of wobbling a little bit. Just have to be easy on the pulling and don't pull too much clay or too fast. I don't want to pull it up off the wheel head. me a little longer to get that one pulled because of that, but I just had to pull less clay more times to keep from pulling that bat up off the wheel. I didn't put any slip down underneath this bat. Let's see, get a little bit more belly. Alright, I think I've said this before too, but when I go to wet the top, I just use my sponge so that I only get water right there where I want it. I don't get a ton of water on the piece other than right where I want the water. Got a lot of clay there in the top. I can make a really tall skinny neck. I don't know how well it'll look balanced, but we'll just do it and see what happens. That's definitely tall and skinny neck. There we go. Hey Max, welcome from the Ukraine. All right, let me go back up to here where I was. Thanks, Lydia. Yeah, it's just lots of practice. Oh, you want one of those in purple? Yeah, well, this clay is for my wood kiln, but maybe I'll try one in my gas kiln and put it in the purple, see how it comes out, and then if I'll put it on Etsy and maybe you can get it that way. Yeah, Clifford. Yeah, I'm not sure about the crystalline, but yeah, maybe eventually we'll try it. We'll see. Like I said, Max, thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, Lydia, are you in the U.S.? I mean, of course, with Etsy, I've shipped overseas as well. But yeah, that the only problem I've had with I did try this clay in my gas kiln. The only problem I've had with this clay in my gas kiln was with my ash glaze. Seemed like all the other glazes worked fine. It was just when I did the ash glaze that I had some blisters in the ash glaze, and it probably has to do with the viscosity of the glaze once it's at maturing temperature. If there's still gas coming out of the clay at that point, and if the ash glaze is too thick at that point, the gas comes out. But then the where that gas bubble comes out, it doesn't have, it's the enough or not viscous enough to cover over that hole. Sorry, I had another phone call coming in. So anyway, yeah, I do have an Instagram, Max. If you just look up at Matthew Kelly Pottery on Instagram. Yeah, I need to start putting links to Facebook and Instagram and all that in my YouTube videos. I need to have just a file that I copy and paste into my descriptions so that everybody has that. All right, so I also saw a picture. We'll do a picture here, and then see what time it is. We will add a little bit of slip underneath this bat. Oh. Help it stick down to the wheel. Yeah, I really one of my favorite shapes to make is pictures. To be honest with you, I just love seeing them come together and making a form where the spout really can shine. And I've even made pictures where I do the bird beak spout, where you have a spout that sticks up above the rim of the pitcher. That's just a form that I think it looks really nice. It has a dual purpose. It can be very, very elegant and decorative, but it also serves a purpose as far as being useful. My wife came to the back door to smile at me so that she doesn't want to come in here and say hi. She just wants to taunt me from the back door. She's probably outside playing with the kids and decided to come over and see if I was still live streaming. Alright, so I'm going to make a belly on the bottom of this, and then also make that little foot like I do on most of my pieces. Start out by making a little bit of a belly, a little bit of the shape. Now we'll separate that clay at the bottom to make the foot. Yeah, I'm really liking the pictures I've made this time. It's the first time I've ever done those with that with those grooves in the neck, like that one that I showed at the beginning of my stream here. I've got some others that I made like that as well. Alright, so getting a nice round belly there. I'm not going to neck this in too much, but I want to still add a little water there so I can get that in. I don't want to make it too skinny. I want whoever has it to be able to get their hand down in there to clean it. Alright, that's probably good there. We'll do those lines in the neck like those others, and then I'll put the spout on it. Alright, I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of water right here to the neck where I want to put those grooves. Grab my trusty paintbrush like I did the others. It has that nice blunt round end, and there we go. Just like I said, it gives that nice separation from the bottom of the pot to the top. It'll be a nice place too for the glaze to break, depending on what glaze I put over top of it. And then we'll come back and put the spout on. So I pinched that together quite a lot to begin with, because as that dries it's going to separate. So I pinch it together farther than I actually want it, and then as it dries and pulls apart, I get more of the actual spout that I want it to end up looking like. No, it's not ready yet. Alright, let's see. Oh no, Marco, my wife is not shy at all. She's just, who knows? She's probably watching the kids and just wanted to taunt me. She's not shy. She's, Hey Cheryl, yeah, definitely. I didn't recognize your name because the last name was not Henderson. Cheryl, I didn't know that was you. I saw your name earlier. Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna be doing more of that white because that white I just tested in the first wood firing, and it turned out really nice. Marco, a good rule of thumb on wall thickness. I don't, as far as I don't know the thickness of it. I would say as thin as you can without the pot falling apart, and that's going to change as your skill changes. Now, certain things, of course, you don't want to make too thin, but a pitcher you don't want that real thick because you want to once you fill it with water or tea or whatever's in it, you don't want it to be too thick and not be able to pick it up. Yeah, John, she would definitely have a lot to say about keeping up with 3 kids, and there she is. Look, she chimed in. Oh, Cheryl, yeah, that makes sense. You'd have to make a whole new account. Yeah, she'd have a whole lot to say about how hard it is to keep up with 3 kids and me and all the other stuff that she has to do. So she's like Superwoman in disguise. All right, any more thoughts on what you'd like to see made? We've been almost 2 hours now, so. We might end it here in just a minute, and then hey Shelby, I'm glad to help. Yeah, I figured the live streams would be nice. Like I said, in between, do have a video going up tomorrow, but just something so that we're not all sitting around watching the news and going crazy. I don't really watch much news anyways, but we got enough things to worry about. It's nice to take a little break and just do something else. So, like I said, I know I'm fortunate the fact that I get to still do kind of what's normal to me as far as working at home and making pots. Now again, all this is still at some point is going to have to be sold, but I've already paid for the clay. All that is kind of like already paid for, so I might as well take the time to make the pots that I need. And as I said in the last live stream, my kiln firing and kiln opening sale is going to be rescheduled. Obviously, it's supposed to be in like 4 weeks from now, and I seriously doubt the world is going to be back to normal enough by then that I could do my kiln opening. So I'm just going to push that back. I don't have a date yet, and I need to put out the details, at least notification that it's going to be postponed. But we're just going to postpone it to an unknown date at this point. Yeah, Marco, if you got 500 pounds of clay, you got to put up. Yeah, I understand. But yeah, we're just going to postpone the kiln opening, and that'll give me more time to just take the time with the pots that I want as far as to make them for the wood firing as well. I won't be rushed. We'll just wait for a few more weeks to fire the kiln, and I'll do more videos and live streams in this time frame. And like I said, that'll just give us time to hang out and chat a little bit. And if you guys have any preference on what time of day works good for you, I'm just going to try it at different times of the day. Last time I did 3 p.m. This time I did 1 p.m. The next one I might even do at 5 or 6 p.m. And that way, people, if they are still working their normal hours, they can watch after they're off of work, that kind of thing. So let's see. Maybe we'll alter the rim on that one while we're here. Instead of putting that back all the way down onto the bat pins, I'm just going to set it on my bucket. Except now my water's in my bucket that I want to use to wet my fingers. Hold on, I got a little bowl over here with water in it. All right, so let's see. We'll do. Excuse me. I'll do a couple big flutes here. I got the bat pin holes to help me line these up across from each other. So we'll do that. Come across to the other one. Do that. And then we'll do a couple small flutes in between those. Like that. And like that. Yeah, I got a tickle in my throat. Alright, I'll set this down and I'll pick the camera up so you can see the design on it a little better. So I got two big flutes across from each other and then two small flutes across from each other. And letting the rim stiffen up a little bit helps with getting that real nice big swoop on those flutes like that. If it's too wet, especially with these being as wide and shallow as they are, it can be challenging. You could distort the whole thing. Now that's something, like I said, I won't keep the AC on in here when I'm not in here today. But if I had the heat on or if I had the AC blasting, I definitely would want to cover that and let it dry slowly once it stiffens up enough that the plastic won't hurt it. Because that being that wide would be something very prone to crack on the rim. Yeah, thanks, Marco. Yeah, I had one cup of coffee this morning before the live stream, and might be time for another one. You're right. So, anyway, hey, I really appreciate you guys. I'm glad you guys are enjoying. You're welcome, Lydia. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the live streams. For some reason, must be the other stuff going on in the world. My YouTube videos have had a lot less views than normal, but I try not to look at that because get too tangled up in that. It's like, you know, I'm just going to focus on doing 2 videos a week all year long, at least as far as my regular uploads, and then these live streams will just be extra, and just, you know, let happen what happens. You know, I can't control subscriber count and views and all that, and I'm not going to do clickbaity titles and clickbait thumbnails. That stuff just aggravates me, so I'm not going to do that. You know, tune in next time to see what happens. You know, it reminds me of like a soap opera. So not going to do that stuff. We're just going to keep it real and have fun and make pots. So anyway, I'm going to make some lids today for these 6-pound jars. I got about 5 more 3-pound bottoms that I have to throw tops on. So I've got plenty to do today, but anyway, for now we'll end the live stream, and we'll do another one in a few days. Maybe Sunday or Monday we'll do another one, and we'll try it in the evening. Unless it's on Sunday. Sunday I could just do any time, and it would be okay, because people will not be at work on Sunday. But maybe next time I do one during the week, we'll do it at like 5 or 6 p.m. That way, if at least Eastern, if people are working their normal schedule, they'll be off work by then. So. Anyway, thank you guys as always. I appreciate you. And don't forget to, if you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe if you're not subscribed already before you go. And yeah, like I said, thank you guys. Appreciate you. You guys stay safe and be smart. And we'll see you soon. All right. Bye.